Welcome back. Today, this is going to be a webinar class we're going to do that Elli puts on every now and then. And basically, it's going to cover maintenance service checklists. That's the topic today. And I think this is important for all installers as well as designers because, you know, maintenance is a huge part of your business, or should be, because it's really the only sellable component of your business once you get to that stage of your career. So we'll get into the other stuff on that later on, but let's just focus on this topic today, having checklists. I have this for my own business. I'm suggesting that everybody do this to make yourself more efficient. And let's dig into our first slide here. We'll go through some of this discussion. Okay, so you can see here at the top it says develop a system. Systems are important for your business, and I'm not going to teach you how to employ systems today, but this is kind of the topics or the elements that are composed of a system as it relates to maintenance and your service side of your business. So I've got a couple goals here that we need to achieve when it comes to maintenance. And the first one obviously is to operate efficiently and effectively. You know, by having a system in place, you're going to develop your people, your team, your person, whatever it is, to get a routine going so that they can become more efficient and they don't miss things, don't miss tasks or duties that are required or expected for the job. Point number 2 here is to develop expectations. Expectations are going to be not only for your service provider, your technician, but also for the customer. They each need to have a set of expectations. As a customer, when you go to the job site, you know, they're going to expect you to do certain things. You know, if they're paying you for the service, you know, what is that you're going to require your guy to or gal to do on the job site. And then the service technician, by having a checklist, it will get them into a habit of doing the same procedures, processes, and tasks at each and every service call. And then it becomes the routine. Therefore, as the routine becomes a standard practice, he won't have to think about it, and they can just flow right through it. They're going to become more efficient and effective, more profitable for you as a company. Okay, point number 3 is going to be to build trust. Again, trust for the customer, trust for you as the employer, that your guy or person is actually doing what they're supposed to on the job site for each and every job. And then the customer, same thing. They don't have to worry about anything. They're going to know when you show up, you're going to clean fixtures, you're going to check and make sure everything's operating properly, that there's no malfunctioning, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the next point is to ensure accountability. Again, that's kind of tied in with the expectations, but accountability for that your technician is following what your standards are, or your practices when they're actually performing these tasks. And then the last point is to ensure proper communication. Okay, without good communication, not only will the customer be left in limbo and then asking questions or calling you, it doesn't encourage or build that trust if you don't have good communication. So you want to communicate to your team or your technician, this is what needs to be done, this is when it needs to be done, and then in turn they need to communicate that with the customer by calling them or contacting them in advance, letting them know, hey, Mrs. Jones, I'm going to be at your job site at 10 in the morning on Thursday, whatever it is. And you might want to do that in 2 different time frames. I like to do it where I'll contact my customer at least 1 to 2 weeks in advance and let them know by email that I'm going to show up approximately at this time on this day. And then the day before the service, do the same thing. Just give them a quick reminder, whether it's a call or an email or a text, and let them know, hey, I'm still on task. I'll be there at this time frame. That way there's no questions. They're ready for you. You don't have any access problems, because sometimes, as you know, with some of these higher end residential jobs, they have gated gates, or they're, you have to get access into these communities. So if you're not on the list at the guard gate, or you don't have the access codes, then that's going to be a problem for you, a wasted trip. All right, let's go to our next slide. Okay, checklist components. You can do this in many different ways. This is just how I do it. I break it down into basically time-framed elements. So I've got 5 different components here. The first one being pre-services, and then site arrival, then services, then site completion, and then lastly post-service. So I'm going to describe each one of these in more detail on these next slides. So let's move forward. Okay, the first one, as I mentioned, is pre-services. This is prior to you leaving the office or the shop. Okay, so when your technician is ready to rock and roll and head out to the route or the job sites, these are the items that you should consider doing before you leave the shop. And I've got several bullet points here. The first one is, ideally, as a company, you should give your technician or your person a monthly service list. Let them know what's coming up for the entire month, at the beginning of the month or in advance. Maybe it's a week prior to the month starting. That way he can review that, or she, and they can ready their scheduling of routes in advance. Okay, and again, it's at the beginning of each month, so then that way, okay, I've got 34 maintenance visits to do over this next month. That way you can plan out weekly or daily. So anyways, that's the first thing. Then you want to jump into, remember we talked about customer notification. If it's that day or the day before, as we mentioned, contact them, let them know they're on your schedule for the day. How many jobs are during that day? Are you servicing 3 sites? Are you servicing 8 sites? Whatever it is per technician. So again, all this is like pre-service work. The next thing is updated job information. What I mean by that is, your service technician should pull the job file, or however you have that set up. Maybe it's on your phone or whatever processes you have. I'm old school, so everything I do is still by paper, and I have job files for each individual customer. So you want to make sure that you have your job contact information's all updated, phone number, address, gate codes, the family, who members, the names of the family members, and the dogs as well. So that way, you're ready to go when you get to the job site. You want to have your as-built plan. That's another thing that's important to bring with you. If you're into the design side like I am, then I have an as-built plan for every single job that I've done. So I can pull that as part of the file folder, and I can take that with me. And the importance of that is then that way you can update those plans when you're doing the service. Let's say you go out to the job site, basic service. It may be simple, where all you're doing is cleaning and re-aiming fixtures, making minor adjustments, and then you move on to the next job. Well, there's nothing really to update onto the as-built plan per se, but you'll note the date of the service, what you did, you'll have that type of information on the checklist. But if there's changes, let's say you get to the job site, 3 fixtures had broken stakes, you had to relocate 2 downlights, whatever it is, you need to update the as-built plan with that documentation so that it's always current. Okay? So that's the importance of that. The next item is daily routing. Again, be smart about how you send your technicians out, or make sure that they're smart about this. Go to the same general areas during that day. You know, if it's one city or town, keep them all focused within an isolated area. Route so that you're saving on mileage and gas. You don't want to be driving all over the big cities there, you know, not having a planned route. So that's pretty common sense, but just wanted to mention. And then lastly, the last point of pre-services before you leave the shop is you want to ensure that your vehicle, your maintenance vehicle, is fully stocked, or at least minimally stocked with the parts that you're going to need, the tools, the equipment, cleaning supplies, maybe added fixtures in case there's an add-on that's necessary. A lot of times customers will do that. You'll get out there, you start talking, boy, I really wish that I had one or two more lights on that fountain in the back. Oh, I can do that, no problem, because you've got a couple extra fixtures on the truck. That way you can now do it. You don't have to make a second trip out to the job site and, you know, to do that service. It's all in one shot. Now you're making more money, more profitable. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So site arrival. This is the next component of your system. And this is once you arrive at the job site. You want to park your vehicle, this is the first point, in the proper location according to what the customer prefers. Some customers don't like it when you park your vehicle on their driveway because of potential oil leaks or whatever on your truck. And if it stains the concrete and stuff like that. So find out from your customer what's preferred, where do you access the property, and where you should park. And then as well, make sure you park in a location that hopefully maybe you've got signage on your vehicle. That way other neighbors can see who's doing the work on the job site and they may call you. So point number 2, customer hello and notice. So this again, depending on the situation, if you haven't been able to reach your customer directly prior to the service, it's a good idea to go to the front door, ring the bell, you know, make contact physically with somebody at the home to let them know that you're there, so that you don't scare anybody, you know, that's at the back of the property that doesn't know that you're coming. And it's also a good chance for you to build additional, you know, relationship skills and trust with the customer, because it gives you a chance to talk with them for 5 to 10 minutes. Hey, how are the kids? You know, building that relationship, because that's a strong value for your company, to where not only image but future work for yourself. So take advantage of that while you're there. People actually enjoy that when you spend time with them. So that's a good starting point. Gather tools, your phone or your camera, and any supplies. You want to make sure when you're first moving around the property, you're going to do different things, like just checking the entire landscape, make sure there's no problems or damages. The reason why I tell you to bring a camera or have your phone available so you can take pictures is to help document problems that you find. So let's say you're wandering through and then you see, wow, they've done some replanting here. They dug through a planter bed, and maybe they're saying, well, gosh, the lighting's not working. Well, maybe that's where cables are running and they've cut through wire. So you want to photo document these things as you're going so that you have proof of stuff too. Maybe you're walking through and you find a glass candle or some sort of furnishing or garden art or something on the job site that has been broken. Okay, I've had this happen before, that something is broken on the site. Well, I don't want to be blamed for that. Okay, so you photo document that and then immediately notify the customer, hey, I'm out here, I'm getting ready to do maintenance. I noticed that your glass art plate or whatever was broken. It was left laying here. I don't know how this happened, but I wanted to let you know. That way you're preemptive on them trying to put the blame on you or your company. So anyways, again, photo document. This is always good to have. Maybe another service provider did some damages, took off and just left it to, and you just don't want to get blamed for something. Okay, the last point here is to visually scan and assess all the lighting zones. We kind of talked about this already, but the idea is to walk through and just be aware of your surroundings, looking for these damages, looking for disturbed soil conditions where people have done work or services, because these may be potential problems that will help you in your troubleshooting later if you're there for some sort of a service like that. Okay, let's move on to the next slide here. So now we're at the services component, and I've broken this down into, I think it's 5 different categories. So the first one, well, services this is the systematic approach to the tasks we need to perform on the job site. So the first item, and I always start off with going to the front of the line, basically, where the power source is. Okay, so power source, transformer location, that's where you start on your services, especially when it comes to troubleshooting. You always want to start there and then work your way out. So again, when you first get there and you start on the transformer, you want to verify the voltage and the amperage, just to make sure it's compatible or the same as what you had on the as-built plan from the installation phase. Okay, if it's different, let's say the voltage has dropped or the amperage has increased or something along that lines, then well, maybe something's happened to the system. Maybe the power supply to the home has been increased through the upline transformer feeding the property, or maybe lights have been added to your system that you did not know about. So these are things to check just to verify that everything's okay. Okay? And then part of the services here is you want to first clean the exterior and the interior compartment of the transformer, because it will be dirty, obviously. They're usually exposed to the outdoor environment, and there are ways for rodents, insects to get inside the transformer, especially if you're not using conduit to feed the cabling up inside the transformer. There are little gaps. There's the way that they design some of these transformers, there's ways for these living creatures to get inside the transformer. So you want to go in, start with the outside, clean up the outside of the transformer first, and then work your way to the inside. Now be careful, I will say this as a precautionary note, when you open up the transformer to get to the interior compartment, do it slowly, like if it's a door hinge or if it's a lid that you're pulling off, do it slowly. I only say this because I've had situations where wasps will build nests inside the transformer, and you don't want to get stung if you scare them. So take that, open up slowly. Same with, there's other things that will be living in there. I've found black widows in there before. I've found a dead frog, dead mice. There's different things that can get inside there. So just open it slowly, do a visual inspection, use a glove or a towel when you go in and you start cleaning the interior underneath the cables and or up inside there, because that's where some of these creatures will live, and next thing you know, you're bitten by something. So anyways, that's that. let's move on. So we've got verify controls used. I wrote that down as a means for quick inspection and make sure that your control modules are functioning properly. Okay, you can do quick tests on that to see if the system turns on and off, but you want to make sure each visit, if in most cases, maintenance visits occur once a year. Okay, now you may have customers that will be 3 and 4 times a year, so it's less likely you're going to have problems that you'll encounter, but no matter what, you just want to, as part of your service, just check the control devices to make sure everything's functioning right. The other thing that you want to verify is the overcurrent protection device, which is your thermal resettable breaker that's inside the transformer, or a fuse stat that's used, okay, replaceable fuse. Make sure that those are not, haven't tripped or haven't blown out, so then that way, the system's still functioning like it should be. The next thing is to tighten the secondary lugs. This is on the low voltage side of the transformer. So as you know, power comes into the transformer at, let's say, 120 volts. It's converted through the windings, and then it comes out as around 12 volts. Anywhere from 11 to 15 volts is the standard. Okay, so you want to tighten those lugs down where the cables are connected to those lugs, because they will loosen a little bit over time, especially with expansion and contraction heat. So just check that, make sure that that's a tight connection. You might want to lubricate the hinged cover or the door on the transformer, because those get gummed up a little bit. They stick, or dirt gets inside the hinges, and so it's just a good idea to lubricate that. And then the last thing that you want to do at the transformer location is to document any electrical changes. Remember, we talked about voltage and amperage. If they're different from the as-built plan, I'm assuming that you're documenting this during the installation. You should be. Then you need to make adjustments on the as-built plan, and you also need to ask questions. Well, why did it change? What was the cause of the changes, so that you have a reference and notes on that in case there's future problems with the system. And then also note any problems or damages. Again, we talked about, let's say you open it up and you see, a fried frog inside the transformer, whatever it is. You make a note that, hey, rodents or insects or amphibians, whatever it is, are getting inside the transformer. Maybe you can find a way to seal that off better so that future issues don't occur. Okay? All right, let's move on. So we're still in services. We're now at number 2, which it deals with, okay, we started with number 1 was transformers. Number 2, now we're going to go down line from the transformer. So the first element that we're going to come to in the cable distribution system is your hubs and or sub-hubs. That sub-hubs, some may not be familiar with that term, but that's something that I do in my lighting design. It's basically like a hub or a junction point. I'm going to save that for a different class because it goes into much more detail. But just know that it's a wire cabling junction point, basically. So you go to your main points to make sure that, well, let's talk about that here. So the things that you're looking for is you want to locate all hubs and sub-hubs. Okay, make sure that you can find them, for one, because once you install them, many times in landscapes, as plants grow, ground cover grows, bark's added, whatever the case may be, these things get buried or hidden. So you want to be able to identify where those are at and know that you can access them if you need to. So anyways, moving to the next one is inspect the surrounding areas and general cable routing path if you're troubleshooting. So as you're leaving the transformer and heading out to each hub location, you want to inspect things along the way, just in case you notice, hey, somebody's been digging over here. Again, these things will help you when it comes to the troubleshooting phase. Okay. Um, Number 3 here, or well, the third point is lightly prune around these locations, especially if the hubs or the sub-hubs are hidden or buried. You know, clean it off, make sure it's exposed so that you can find it, and then prune the plantings around it slightly so then that way they're not completely hidden. And then the last thing is to document, again, any of the problems or concerns or damages that you found at these locations. You don't have to actually test the voltage at the individual hubs unless you're dealing with a troubleshooting scenario, okay? Assuming that everything's still intact and functioning as it should be, there should be no problems with those locations. So, okay, let's move on. Number 3. Next page here is the ground-mounted lights, okay? I've broken light fixtures down into ground-mounted versus tree or structural mounted lights, okay? So above grade, in grade, those are the two differences. So let's start with our in-grade type fixtures or our ground-mounted fixtures. And this is just do a basic inspection to verify that there's no damages and problems with the light fixture. First of all, is it burning? Is the light source working, the LED inside? So that's obviously the main concern at the light fixture. And then the rest is, you know, just fixing any issues with them in terms of like cleaning them up, making sure that the light visibility is coming out of the glass lens. It's not all caked with dirt or anything like that. And then let's go ahead and go down our bullet point list here. So ensure that the mount device or the mounting mechanism is secure, in place, and, you know, firm basically, and plumb. So for path lights especially, you want to make sure it's true, you know, it's true plumb so that it's not tilted sideways or leaning in certain directions. You know, make sure that that's all cleaned up. The next thing is to ensure lockdown hardware is set. So you have lockdown adjustment screws for aiming positions. Make sure that those are all tight and set as they should be. The next one is lightly prune the plants that are within the beam spread. So if you have a directional light source, a fixture, an uplight, let's say, that's aimed at a whatever it is, a feature or a tree or whatever the case may be, you want to make sure that the beam spread, that the light that's coming out of the fixture is not blocked by any plantings, okay? Couple reasons. One is it creates hot spots on the plants because the light fixture is so close to it, and therefore it becomes a distraction in the landscape, for one. But, you know, again, keeping that adjusted so that way you're not blocking the view, the beam spread of the light. You may have to relocate these fixtures, and I talk about that next. Relocate fixtures due to plant growth. If the plant growth is excessive and there's no way to prune it to where you can stop that problem, then relocate the entire fixture out of the way of the plant more. Okay? The next item is inspect the LEDs or the lamps. As I'd mentioned in the beginning, you want to make sure they're operating to their best performance. They're not flickering, that all of the LED chips are burning properly. Sometimes, you know, they'll start failing after a certain number of years. One of the 3 chips may be burning out, and you'll see that. So just go ahead and change it, put in a new LED at that point, and you're good to go. You want to also lubricate O-rings, gaskets, and any threads that are on, like, let's say a lens cap that screws on to the body. Lubricate those so then that way they don't seize up or dry out in the case of gaskets and O-rings. Okay? And then clean the exterior of the fixture. Obviously, that's a big deal. The housing as well as the glass where the light comes out of the light fixture. Okay. Another added thing you can do with these light fixtures, it's not a must on every job, but this is an extra service that you can provide. You might want to oil up the fixtures if they're brass or copper or bronze, it makes them look newer, and it also helps to keep the grime and water off of the fixtures more from buildup. So that's a good idea to do for the actual light fixture itself, so it looks nicer. Another thing that you might want to do here at the, well, again, you should do is, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. Document the damages and problems that you find at the fixtures as well. Every one of these steps that we're going through, you're going to want to document as much as you can about what's going on so that for the future. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next item. Number 4, tree and structure mounted lights. It's the same as the ground mounted ones, more or less. You're just inspecting for damages, you're cleaning, you're adjusting the aiming, testing the socket and the connections if for some reason there's a problem with the light source not functioning. So, but with these, obviously you're up on a ladder, you're in a tree, or you're on a structure, the house or an arbor or whatever the case may be. So you're above ground, you've just got to worry about safety concerns, okay? So spend as little time on the ladder as you can and ensure your ladder is stable wherever you've located it. So again, let's go through our bullet points. It's more or less the same, but I'll just run through them real quick. Ensure that the mounting device, your hardware, whether it's a single hanger bolt or 3 hanger bolts or whatever, however your means of attachment from the light fixture to the tree or the structure, make sure that that's stable and secure. And with trees especially, remember, trees grow outwards from the trunking or the branch. So over time you're going to have to adjust back out those hanger bolts or those screws that are holding cables that are attached to the tree as well out of the tree, so that way they don't suck into the outer bark. Okay? Ensure that the lockdown hardware is set. We talked about that before. Another area that we didn't talk about with ground lights, but it's more common in the trees, is rodent damage. Okay? A lot of times, at least out here in California, we have a lot of squirrels and rats that love to run up and down the trees, and they don't like the cabling and or fixtures that are located where their running routes are. So you have to do special things like offset the cabling to the side of the tree more, not right on top of the branch where they're running, because they don't like that, so then they tend to want to chew through the cabling. So you want to look for rodent damages in trees. That can be a problem. And then take protective measures for future consideration. If you have problems with this, you may have to customize things. I've done this before where I've taken wire mesh and I've built a cage assembly, in a sense, on the back end of fixtures up in trees to prevent the squirrels from chewing off the wire leads coming out of the light fixture. Okay, these are measures. You have to find ways to prevent this from happening. Or you may have to run conduit up the tree all the way to the fixture, again, to prevent them from chewing through the cable. Some cables have components in them like oils from, like soy oil, and they love to eat that. So unfortunately, because these cables are constructed this way, some of them, they're going to try to eat that. So just be careful. Okay, let's keep going on. Inspect the LED and the lamp for failed units. We already talked about that. Lubricate O-rings, gaskets, and threads. Same thing here. Clean the exterior of the fixture and the glass as well. We've already talked about all these things, as well as document any damages or problems at these fixtures. Okay? All right, let's move on. Number 5, final system inspection. Okay? This is after you've performed all your service work on the fixtures throughout the property, the hubs and the transformers. This is at the very end. Okay, so you're going to want to ensure that all the cables are buried. Okay, a lot of guys don't use conduit these days to put their cables runs in. So if you've buried or covered the cabling with just bark and things like that, minimally, then you're likely to have cables exposed in the landscape. You may not care, but it doesn't look professional and it can be a bother to the customer. So if you're working with higher end customers, take this as a big concern and ensure that your cables are buried on the site. Okay, document any changes to the as-built plan. We've already discussed this several times. That's critical. You've got to keep up with these as-built plans. And then the other thing that I put on here as a final inspection piece is to note any future expansion ideas, concepts. So let's say the homeowners added a little privacy garden off to one side of the yard and it's not really illuminated over there well. This is an opportunity for you to sell more light fixtures or to do more work for the customer. So you may want to come up with an idea or a concept for this and then present it to the customer. Now you've got added work. It's more profit, more money for your business. All right, let's move on. Okay, we're at site completion. This is one of the components again, and this is before leaving each job site. It's kind of at the tail end of everything once you're finished with all your service work. So you're going, again, walking around, performing a final walkthrough on your site to make sure that you haven't left any tools, trash, or debris laying around on the project. Again, you want to present yourself very well to your customer so that they know that they can count on you to take care of their property for them. You're not going to make a mess and leave it. Okay? This is just good customer service. Ensure the work areas are all clean. Again, broom finish, cleaning at the end. Ideally, you just want to make sure that you leave the place looking better than when you arrived. That's really the goal, because that will leave a good memory for the customer's experience, and they'll say, man, he always does a great job for me out there. I don't have to worry about anything. Okay? Shut the doors, shut the gates, make sure that you've got things turned off. You know, if you've turned on the systems, you know, maybe move things back into position so it looks nice. You know, just do these little simple things. It takes a little extra time, but it's, again, a good customer service act. And once again, log all work and damages. Anything that's out of the ordinary, log it down. Again, this gives you future information for the next service. Okay, let's move on. Okay, we're at our last component, which is called post-services. And this is after you return from your service route after the end of the day. Okay, so when you return back to the office or the shop, what are some of the things that you need to do post-service? Okay, first thing is verify your mileage log, your daily mileage. You know, I don't know how your company typically does this, but you know, I like to track all my mileage information. It's valuable in several ways, not only for tax purposes, but there's other ways that it benefits you. So log that. The other thing that's a good idea to do as a service technician, you know, keep track of what's going on with your gas in your vehicle. Okay, maybe you have a minimum stand. Once it reaches the halfway point, it's time to refuel the vehicle. So you always have plenty of gas, and you're not making extra trips or stops in order to do that. Get that as part of your plan, your routine, so then that way it's always taken care of. The next point is perform daily inventory. Okay. Again, each vehicle should have some sort of a basic minimum level of inventory that's on it, okay, for all your parts. You never want to get out to a job site where, oh gosh, I just ran out of electrical tape, or I forgot to bring my shovel. I've done this, I'm guilty of it, but again, the goal is to avoid this. If you pre-plan for it and you have it as part of your checklist or your task list each day, then you're always on top of it. You always have plenty of inventory and supplies on your vehicle. Next point, perform daily cleaning of the vehicle. Okay, this doesn't mean you have to wash your vehicle, wax it, and do that on a daily basis, but keep it looking good. Keep your inside of your vehicle, where you don't have, McDonald's trash waste all over in the front seat. You've got your, dog chew toys in the back, whatever it is. Just kind of, keep it looking professional, so then that way, if your customer sees it, they're going to say, well, these guys take care of their vehicles. They look good. Again, it's an image thing. That's very helpful for your business. Okay, the next item, ensure as-built plans are updated. We've already talked about this. Okay, once you've updated the documentation, then return it back to where it's supposed to go. If your office has a filing system for each customer, then return the files back so that they're always updated and ready to use for the next service. As well as the office person or people can take whatever they need at the time, and it's always updated. They don't need to worry about calling you or asking you, hey, did you do a system check on this property, blah, blah, blah. They can see in these records because they're updated constantly. Okay? And then the last thing here is communicate with your office about any add-ons or any extra services that were performed on the job that they may not be aware of. Again, for billing purposes and for maximizing accountability and understanding of what's going on each job. Okay, let's move forward. Service log example. We're almost done here. I wanted to show you an example of a log that I use for existing properties. Let's say I get a call and I have to go out and check a system and find out what's they're saying. Oh, nothing's working. Oh, it's bad. You may not even do service work like this, but I do occasionally, where I'll get a call and I didn't install the job, and I decided I'm going to take this project on and upgrade it, service it, and then hopefully change out the system, put in a new system as part of the deal down the road. So I may take these jobs on. Well, I've got to have some sort of a service log where I can track what I find when I go to the initial visit. So when I go out and I verify or I evaluate the job, I'll go through this checklist and I'll start making notes. Oh, these 5 fixtures have broken stakes. Oh, I need to add a couple risers over here on these fixtures. Oh, these downlights are hanging off the tree. Whatever it is, broken glass. You can log all this information onto a checklist, so then that way you can go back and give them a proper proposal, or you've got something to work with for billing purposes. So on this example that I'm going to show you, you want to use condensed descriptions to minimize the form size and the use of the form. Okay, you should just understand the form, but this is only for the office and for the service technician. You're not giving this to the customer. Okay, so you need to be able to understand how you can capture all that information minimally without having 10-20 pages worth of notes to deal with. And then the last part of this is you want to reference always to your as-built plan. So for example, if you're using as-built plans like I do, I always reference on my as-built plans fixture numbers. So let's say you've got 56 fixtures on the plan. total, then you can go through, okay, fixture number 22 has a problem with a broken stake. Fixture number 46, 47, and 48 are missing light sources or LEDs. You know, you can document and you can easily refer. That way you know on the as-built plan what and where everything's located without having to do full-on descriptions of, okay, the light fixture located by the bathroom window on the left side of the house over by the crepe myrtle tree. You know, it just gets too lengthy. It's better just to identify it by number, saves you time, and it's easy to reference. All right, let's look at these. I've got 3 pages here. I had to break it down into 3 pages to fit. On this first page here, you see this is the start of my document. And you can see at the top left, they've got job name, address, and email, and phone number. You know, you may not have to put all this information in there, but again, it's there in case you need it to identify who you're working with, obviously. On the right side of the top, you see date, site review time in hours, and then the start and stop. Those are referring to the times. When did I start? Started at 10:01 in the morning, finished at 2:30 in the afternoon, whatever it is, right? So that way you, again, for billing purposes, you can account for your time and what was done out there. And then as it goes down this list, it says services required. Off to the left side, I've got fixture damage, and then I've got several categories there. It says damaged stakes or posts, damaged mount, damaged housing, damaged knuckle. Is it a corrosion or deterioration problem? Is it a broken glass lens or other? You know, again, you can set up your own categories how you want on what's common for problems that you run into on the job site. But I do this, and then that way I can say what the fixture number is, or the transformer number, or the hub number. Okay, you see that up in red there. That's just my coding system on how I do this. I may say, you know, fixture number 22, 45, 67, whatever it is, I can put that under damaged mounts, okay? All I got to do is put those numbers in there, and then I can total up. I've got 3 of these problems, okay? And then this will then, again, you can charge accordingly based off of these categories. Let's keep moving down this list here. I've got fixture removal, fixture addition, riser removal, riser post addition in different size risers. Then you go off to the right side there and it says LED replacements. It could be lamp replacements if you have an old school system. Same thing, so I've listed out what type of LEDs or lamps are we working with. Well, it's MR16, MR11, AR12, T3s. You know, you can see the list there that's established. A lot of these lamp or LED types aren't used much anymore, but you just have common ones. Typically MR16, MR11, PAR 36 type lamps, those are the or T3s, T4 lamps. Those are your most common, okay? So anyways, you want to total these up because you'll need to know for inventory purposes how many lamps do I need of certain types, certain colors, certain beam spreads. You know, all these things matter when it comes to inventory and or use on the job. All right, let's go to our next page. Here, this is another part of page 1 on my document, which is just the final part of it. So on the left side there, you can see I've got cable damage. I want to have a means to describe what is the cable damage that I've run into. Is it at the fixture? Is it at the hub? Is it at the transformer location where the damage is occurred? Because sometimes that's hard to, you can't document that on the as-built plan, but you need to say, hey, there's fixture damage, or cable damage located at the fixture at number 22, right? Or at the transformer number 3 location. So this will help to identify it as it's referenced to the as-built plan. Okay, and same thing on the right side there, tree cable / fixture. What this is to discuss primarily just what lights that are up in trees. I want to know where the fixture is located and which tree it is. So you may want to identify by tree numbers. On your as-built plan, you could have tree locations on there as well. So tree number 13. Okay, I've got 4 lights up in tree number 13. So here again, it helps you to identify and reference things from this manner. Okay, let's move on to our last page here, which is my second page of my document or checklist. And I put in these categories here. So fixture adjustment. So I've got type codes that I call it, where is it going to be a relocation of that fixture, which I designate as R? Is it a positioning or an aiming issue? So I've got 3 ways to code that, and I can put my codes listed there, the fixture number, and then I may want to put a small description on what the problem is, okay, for those adjustments. And then on the right side, I'll have a section at the top there. It's called connector issues. Do I need to change the entire connector out because it's failed or it's a bad connector? Do I need to add a new splice or a new connector because maybe a wire got cut on there or several wires got cut? So you want to list how many splices did you do? How many connectors did you use? And then I go to transformers. What are the issues at the transformers and where at the transformer are these problems at? Is it at the 120 volt side? So at the power source location. Maybe the GFI is damaged or is tripped, won't reset. So that's considered over at that power source side. Is it at the 12 volt side? So at the terminal lugs inside the transformer. Okay? Maybe you've got a faulty lug that the wire burned off on the inside of the transformer. I've had that happen before. So these types of things, you need to be able to identify that and log this information. Is it the overload protection device? Is it the control device? So a timer or a photocell or a relay. Where's the problem located at the transformer? And then the last categories as we go down that right side: fixture cleaning, fixture oiling, transformer cleaning, socket or lamp socket change, plant pruning. You may want to total up how many of each that you're doing and how long, So again, it all references your time that you spent on the job. Because you will have customers, especially if you spend, multiple hours out on a job site. Let's say you spent 14 hours out on a job site doing repairs and or maintenance. They're like, well, how come it costs so much money? Well, you can say, well, I had to spend 3.25 hours doing this on the job. I had to do 5 hours of this. You can break it down based off of these charts to explain. That way they know you're not trying to rip them off. Okay? All right, and then lastly at the bottom, I put on that far right side, it says full cable connector redo, full transformer redo, full fixtures redo. I put that in there in case, let's say you're doing this type of service work where it's not your system, you go to the job, they need help, and you get out there and you find they've got a bunch of Malibu or solar lights installed, garbage fixtures, and you go, gosh, you really need to change out most of these fixtures. You need to add in 15 new lights. So then you can log that information down there, and that way you can now give them a proposal for that. Again, it's just a way of checking. You've got everything documented on one form, so then that way you can transfer it towards bids and proposals or billing situations. Okay? So that's it on this documentation, and I hope it was valuable to you. Again, you can customize these forms and checklists however best fits your company. But the idea is, again, it's a system. It's a means to make you more effective and more efficient at what your routine is doing, okay? And it helps to build your team's confidence in understanding the processes that they need to go through to be accountable 100% of the time, okay? So anyways, enjoy. We'll see you the next round.